All right, good morning, everyone. So today we're going to talk a little bit about OpenClaw. I know we haven't talked about it in our all hands, but today I'm going to do a full deep dive. We're going to go over the phenomenon, what it is, how it, in its short little history, and how it's quietly shaping the entire AI agent industry. If you don't know, I mean, I know you all know, but OpenClaw started as a side project by developer Peter Steinberger in November 2025. That was just a little over 3-4 months ago. And it has just exploded over the past few months. You can't even go into your YouTube, Twitter, anything like that without seeing OpenClaw and all of the hype, all of the fear, everything around it. And this has created, there's more stars on this project than React has had. And it took a decade for React to get there. And people are just losing their minds over this. And I'm going to go over a little bit about why that is. So we're going to dig deep into the architecture today. We're going to talk about what some of the security flaws are and where the opportunity is to kind of build on top of this, as I really see this ecosystem, whether it be OpenClaw or other similar harnesses like it, where that opportunity is for lots of businesses in 2026. So first off, what is it? Well, it's a personal AI assistant and it can run on your own device. And this is really, really big. And this is what first caught my eye. As you know, I'm a really big proponent of local first AI. I think having your AI run on your machine, at least the data that it's being used, having that on your machine. You don't want your data out, especially things like medical data, personal information. This runs locally on your machine. And the other thing that's really cool about it is that it runs off 22 channels. What does that mean? Well, it means you can chat with it on WhatsApp, Telegram, Slack, Discord, Signal, even iMessage. So I could set my mom up with this, and she was texting with it on her iMessage, and it was giving responses back. But it can actually take real actions. It can, one of the very first things that I had it do was I wanted to really push its boundaries, and I had it create a entire content pipeline. It's like, I want to create a pipeline that will go out, search the web, find interesting news for AI. It will then create the scripts. It will then create the thumbnails based off my likeness. It will then upload these to Google Docs and deliver it to me every morning. And it was amazing to see how far it would get. And then when it ran into trouble, it would just say, "Hey, Brad, I need you to add this API or do this thing." It couldn't do it. There's even a new website out there called Rent a Human that allows AI agents to hire a human to do things that it can't do. So it could do real work, not just simple chatbot, not even more complex than what things like Claude Code and Codex can do, because it works in a way that really solves a lot of problems. So we'll get into why that is here in just a minute in the architecture. And as I mentioned, the thing that really I like about it is that it can run on your own device. And I've been using it with local models as well. Obviously not as good in the results as using something like Opus or Codex, but it does show that the future is local, in my opinion. So when it first came out, it was called ClaudeBot, and then immediately Anthropic's lawyers sent them a cease and desist. And the story is pretty fascinating when you hear about what he had to do and just some of the lore around it. If you haven't, there's a great podcast interview with Peter on the Lex Friedman podcast where he talks about this whole story, when he got the letters from Anthropic, how he then had to quickly change it to what was called Moltbot. He didn't really care for the name, But it was interesting too, where he was, when he was changing the name, it actually, there were people sitting on it, and when he would change it in one place, he actually was locked out of his own GitHub repository for a brief period of time. There were agents, crypto people, everything just kind of like sitting on this, trying to see where this was going, because it already had a lot of hype, and people were sniping names left and right. Because when you have to rename it, you have to like, hey, does it have the X account? Does it have, the domain? Is it available on GitHub? And when it became MaltBot, he almost gave up. You could literally see in that interview just the just despair in his eyes of what had happened. And then here, when they finally settled on OpenClaw, what he did to ensure that everything was all synchronous within like a few seconds, the name change and everything, it was pretty interesting. I highly recommend going and checking out that interview with Lex Friedman. But if you've heard it called ClaudeBot or MaltBot, that's just because when it first came out, it was just a side project, and he called it ClaudeBot with some claws. Well, Anthropic didn't like that, apparently. So now it's called OpenClaw. So since then, it has just had huge explosions. Had over 250,000 stars, and it got 60,000 stars in just 72 hours. This is just absolutely unheard of explosion for an open source project. There's over 900 plus contributors, and it's only growing and growing every day. I'm sure this is probably, even created this deck last night, probably grown even more since then. And Jensen Huang even called it that, this is one of the most consequential pieces of software that has ever been built. This is the founder of NVIDIA saying that. So this is something worth paying attention to for sure. And someone did pay attention. Sam Altman. Sam Altman came in and said, I want that. And pretty much made him an offer he can't refuse. And this is also an interesting discussion as well, because Anthropic kind of shut the door right from the get-go. And honestly, I think is one of the just dumbest decisions that Anthropic ever made. I mean, it was called ClaudeBot. They could have came in, made this a part of Anthropic's ecosystem, and we'd be telling a different story here. But because he was the first contact with Anthropic were lawyers, and the first contact by OpenAI and Meta were Mark Zuckerberg and Sam Altman, he was courted by both of them for quite a while. And he said it was a hard decision, mainly because, both of them, he mentioned that Mark and I forget who else he said was actually using it, playing with it, giving real feedback on, you could tell that they were coding with it. Even when he was trying to set up a call with Mark was like, hey, give me about 10 minutes. I'm finishing up some coding. Mark's still coding, apparently. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then Sam also kind of reached out, and both of them really courted Peter. And it's interesting to see how an open source project can, because both of them wanted to keep it open source. Both of them wanted to keep this ecosystem. I think ultimately what drove Peter to OpenAI was he also mentioned that he uses Codex, which was interesting. He used Codex to create most of it and said that Codex was his daily driver and he liked it better than Claude Code, even though he named it ClaudeBot. And I think that the enticement of the private models with unlimited tokens to the latest, OpenAI models, I think that's probably what got him. Because at the end of the day, it wasn't about money. He had already made a ton of money off of his previous acquisitions. This is about playing with the new toys. I can almost guarantee you about what he can actually build. He's a builder, and something I really respect that about him. So I think that now He's at OpenAI, and I think that we're going to start seeing this really, really get deployed within inside of the ecosystem. And kind of why it matters for us. Well, first off, this is huge market validation. This is, pointing to the fact that the market wants personal AI agents. They don't want just chatbots. They want agents that do real work. And if you've used any of these systems, if you've used agents that do accomplish real tasks where you can go to bed, give it a task, and wake up and something that would have taken a team an entire week or month to do, you're just in awe at what these things are now, what's capable for you and your team. And we can build on top of it as we have, because it's open source, because we can extend it, we can commercialize it, we can make it better. And that goes for the entire ecosystem. It's not just about, what's on the foundation, but there's tons of opportunity here, both building on top of it, forking it, being able to make it easier and more accessible for people to use. And that's kind of where the gap we fill in what we have built with AlphaClaw and Alpha Agent, which I'll be going over here in just a moment. So what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's crazy how fast everything has evolved. As you call it out, like the way that repo grew is amazing. And you're totally right with him being acqui-hired for his skills, not so much for like getting the money. He has been doing amazing stuff already. I don't know if you've seen, like lately, he's very vocal about how he's using his unlimited tokens now. And they've done something pretty cool, which is share those unlimited tokens with people. So they have like a new program where you have open source projects will get free tokens to be used. So I think we're going to be continuing to see more of that.
I didn't know that. That's awesome. So open source projects, that's amazing. Maybe that's where OpenAI can finally live up to its open. You're right. So if you look at Peter's GitHub repository, I mean, this guy has been shipping. I mean, these are just, you look at OpenClaw up at the top, but there are a ton of things that he has open sourced. I mean, there's even one in here that I just had to laugh when I was watching the interview with him. He built a little just tool that would replace the new lines in the terminal because he got sick and tired of the new line for like API keys. So it would just add new lines and it would break. So like little tools like this that you would never have spent time to do. He's been shipping them and he has been opening them. I highly recommend going through and seeing some of these little utilities and tools that he's built because he is a builder extraordinaire.
Yeah, I think that definitely shows. There's some hype or news around the end of open source because of AI, how it's hurting projects. And then you see somebody like Peter that's like completely opposite. Like he took that power and like just anything he's doing, he's looking at how he shares and does open source. Even getting hired by OpenAI, he's still doing open source work. He's like, you're right. Like he may be able to help OpenAI be open finally.
Yeah, I've heard that too, and I don't really agree with that. That AI is killing open source. If anything, I think that it's actually going to greatly expand the open source community because when you think about these agents, when they need a tool, when they need something to do, it'll go out to NPM, it'll go out to GitHub and be like, oh, there's already a utility for this. Do I need to code it? Just like we would do as engineers, right? So it doesn't want to have to recode the same thing over and over again either. I think one thing that it's been challenging with open source, and he even mentioned, is just the number of pull requests that they get. How do you actually validate it? He mentioned that, which I like this idea, that, I want you to include the prompt that you used. Like, what was your thinking behind this PR, right? Because, just looking at the code, especially some of these very large ones, it's like, it's hard to wrap your head around, especially when you're getting hundreds, sometimes thousands of these a day on a project as popular as OpenClaw. Giving your prompt is an insight into your thinking. What about you, Bisma? I know you were out when this whole phenomenon was going on.
Yep. The way I was thinking it, I was like, okay, this is something that has like with this much amount, like this immense success that this project has got. What my initial thought was like, I'm sure this specific idea and this specific project is going to maybe inspire or bring a lot of, vibe coding entrepreneurs, which we were not seeing previously. Like there were lots of tools, but we were not seeing like actual businesses coming out of it, actual revenue generating, successful businesses. And with this one, I was reading and people were just like going crazy. Like whenever there's like a new infrastructure comes in, there is something new automation comes in. For example, let's say Shopify created e-commerce founders, then another technology comes in and all of those businesses change. With this one, it looks like we are seeing like now maybe we would see an actual transition, like with all the agentic AI automations and all of that stuff. If anybody would think of previously, like I need a whole dev team for creating all of these automations, I would need to hire this marketing team or this one. Now maybe through OpenClaw as well, or maybe with all of the work that has been done till we have reached here, will open up a lot of businesses that were not, people did not have funds to like actually bring those businesses publicly. So I'm excited for this new future, definitely.
Yeah, it's exciting that, I see people that have never coded a day in their life being like, all right, I got a marketer, I got a coder, I got a salesperson. They're setting up multiple instances of these and they're able to, because a lot of times people just don't know the first thing about starting a company, but they like to tinker, they like to mess around, and you can't just mess around by like, oh, I'm going to hire a marketer, I'm going to go hire this person. That doesn't mean that, as you grow, that you might not hire someone who specializes in this, but just to get started and to validate your idea, this is great.